I got to be careful with this because, this is going to be on social media. So
Yeah.
All right, we got Andy here today. He is a local law enforcement here in Des Moines. He's a special guest, a really good friend of mine. Thank you for being on my Inner Journey podcast. I really appreciate it.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So let's jump right in. Let's talk about your journey and how you started in local law enforcement.
Yeah, so when I was 20, I guess I should say going back, I was in college just like any other student, and I had high ambitions to be a game warden. I knew I wanted to get in law enforcement, and I have a big passion for the outdoors. You know me well enough. Like I said before, my dad, brought me up fishing and hunting and all that stuff. He likes it, but I love it. So that being said, I was like, why not go along the path of being a game warden? I think that'd be a conservation officer. That's what I really wanted to be. And so anyways, I started going to school at Iowa State. And after a while, I realized I was kind of having one big party, a big expensive party. And I was like, I think I'm going to come back home to community college. So I came back to community college and was thinking out loud one day in class. And was like, man, I don't know. I think I'm going to start applying places. Now, in the state of Iowa, you have to be a minimum of age 18. Some places 21 is the minimum age, but a lot of agencies too is 18. And I said out loud, I think I'm going to start applying places. And a girl sitting behind me, I'll never forget, said, hey, you should consider applying to this little town that's about 25 minutes west of West Des Moines. And I said, well, I think that'd probably be all right, And so anyways, I went and applied, and I will never forget, my then girlfriend was sitting in my car, and I had a map quest how to get out there and all this stuff. Like, again, I'm dating myself, how old I am. And was out there talking to the police chief there after I filled this application, probably for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And she's like, man, what's going on? She's just sitting inside. This is, to put in perspective, there was poor cell phone reception out there too. And we didn't have smartphones then, so there was nothing really to do. And anyways, I hit it off with the police chief. And next thing you know, I kind of got my foot in the door. I went through all the testing and all that stuff, and he offered me a job at the ripe age of 20.
Oh, wow.
And so I became a police officer at age 20. I graduated from the Law Enforcement Academy, the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy, at age 21 in 2008. And I was there in that little town of about 1,700 people for about 2.5 years, almost 3 years. And then I went to another neighboring town that's a 12-man police department. It was the county seat, and got to grow a lot, experienced a lot there. Was mentored by some great officers that helped train me and brought me up. And I stayed there down there for about 7 years. And fast forward 2017, I was interested in coming back up to closer to where I grew up, with Des Moines, West Des Moines area, and applied to one of the local metro agencies there, and was fortunate to get hired there. And I'm rounding 7 years of this June there. And it's gone by real fast, man. 16 years, just like in the blink of an eye, it seems like.
Wow, congratulations. That's a long time.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it does. It seems like a long time thinking about it, but
for sure,
from 20 to 36, I'm like, man, where has time gone?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What is your recommendation in terms of anyone looking to get into law enforcement?
I always encourage any of the people that are interested in riding with me, whether it's high school students, college students, stick with school, finish school. I think it's an important aspect. It'll never hurt you. You don't have to have it per se. Some places do require it. It's agency specific. The state of Iowa does not require it. But I think it's a great backup plan. Me personally, if I could do it over, I would probably try to finish in something other than criminal justice.
Oh, okay.
Just to have a backup plan. Okay. And then that way, if the law enforcement side doesn't work out, you can fall back on what you were educated in.
Oh, okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
And I always encourage that. Come ride along, come ride in the kind of the oddball shifts and all that stuff, just to kind of get a taste of what it's really like to try to stay up and things of that nature. Yeah. And then, ask a lot of questions and enjoy the ride. And like I said, get to know it. Do a lot of research before you kind of dive into it, and then go from there. So,
but there is a lot of sacrifices that you guys have to make in terms of working those odd hours. Is that right? Or how does that kind of work?
Yeah, so when I was in that real small community, I will never forget. I used to work 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. or 6 p.m. to 2 a.m.
Oh, wow.
And there's not a whole lot in that little town. I mean, it was wild. I grew up in the suburbs and having anything and everything you'd ever want real close. And then I moved to this little town and everything closed at like 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
There's like a grocery store that had like, it was closed at 6 p.m. And there was like nothing in it really. So you can either come back, drive half an hour, come to Walmart, which is, you know, a lot of these little towns, that's how people grow up.
Yeah, yeah.
It was new to me when I started out there.
Yeah.
And anyways, it was just hard to stay up sometimes.
Yeah.
And then I went to that little slightly bigger agency, and I used to work 6P to 6A.
Oh, wow.
And that was trying times.
Yeah.
12-hour shifts are tough.
Yeah.
For the normal, and then you know, nights, holidays, weekends, all that stuff, and then through the worst of weather, best of weather, and then if you get into something like, you know, when I used to work 6P to 6A, you get into something at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
You may be stuck on overtime for another, you know, 2 hours. You might, you know, 2-3 hours might be 9 o'clock in the morning by the time you actually get home, and then you try to sleep. And then during the summertime, everyone's out mowing their lawn and the sun's bright and everything. I mean, it's tough, man. But fast forward, I battled through that. It was definitely a lot of personal growth during those times.
Yeah.
And about 3, not quite 4 years ago, I finally had the opportunity. I put in that time, and I got to go do a day shift. I work 6:30 to 3 now.
That's awesome.
And it's definitely breathed new life into me. It's a lot easier on the family.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier on me personally. I sleep a lot better. Try to eat a little bit better, but you know, I'm not a starved boy. You know, I like my food. But anyways, it's definitely just an easier going. It helped kind of refresh my career
For sure.
because I was like, man, sometimes those dark nights,
Yeah.
especially, you know, I feel for the guys that still work the night shift because you go to work when it's dark and you come home when it's dark.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, I mean, it's seasonal depression is a real thing.
For sure.
You know
definitely.
what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
I never believed in it until I got older, and I was like, what is even seasonal depression? But I think it's a real thing, you know, especially here in Iowa, the winters that we have and stuff like that. So, yeah. Another question I have is, how do you kind of deal with, you know, the individuals that, you know, I don't want to necessarily say make your job a little bit harder, but, you know, for me in particular, I really commend and respect what you guys do. How do you guys deal with those individuals that, you know, are really upset whether they got a speeding ticket or, you know, they call you in time of need. So it's just, or, you know, just are not just too happy with you, with the interactions that they're dealing with. How do you personally deal with that?
Me personally, I'll go back to when I was, again, one of my mentors. I had a sergeant on the street with me that time. And to tell the whole story, I was having a bad day at work.
Yeah.
You know, my personal life was dragging in my work life and vice versa. And I was really having a tough time. And I was being less than pleasant with some of the public I was dealing with. I you know, didn't see it at that time because I was hot-headed. You know, you're like being hot-headed. I'm not generally hot-headed anymore.
Yeah.
When I was younger, that's a different story. But
For
as
sure.
I got older, I definitely learned to mellow out a little bit. And anyways, I'll never forget, he told me, he said, you know, what's going on? And I just told him, like I said, I was having a bad time. I didn't want to be there, whatever it may be. And he's like, I get it. I completely understand. He says, just remember, when people call for our help, they're not calling because they're having a great day. They're calling because something's wrong. So that's somebody's brother, somebody's sister, somebody's mother, father, uncle, whatever, aunt, whatever it may be. They're calling at the worst of times usually to ask for our assistance. And it really hit home for me and put things in perspective. I'm like, you know what? How would I feel if, again, somebody in my family was being, you know, asking for help from law enforcement and, you know, which is generally a rarity. I mean, people don't call for help all the time. We do have some frequent flyers is what we call them, but just imagine them getting treated that way. And I'm like, you know what? That's true. I completely understand. So after that, it really changed my perspective
For sure.
On how to really speak, not speak at people, but to speak with people.
For sure.
You know what I mean? There's
For
a big
sure.
difference between the two.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
For sure. I think sometimes, you know, as just a citizen, well, just a, you know, normal person, and looking at you guys, you know, come from a place that you guys do have authority. And so sometimes it really depends on the audience in terms of they, you know, really respect what you do, or, you know, sometimes they don't care. And it's all just personal preference. But thank you for everything that you do. It's not easy.
No, man, I appreciate that. We really do.
For sure.
And for anybody listening, when it comes to that stuff, like we genuinely, I mean, me personally and my coworkers, my shift mates and my partner and all that stuff,
Yeah.
we genuinely appreciate, the kind words,
Yeah,
the
for
words of
sure.
encouragement, just like anybody else. I mean, those moments, like, I mean, you can be having the worst day and then you have that one, call for service trip, we call it,
For
that one
sure.
trip where you go and like, you just, it was a good thing that happened. And
Yeah.
then you're like, I'm doing the right thing at the right moment. I'm in
Yeah,
the exact right place I should be.
for sure. How do you, since you're in that line of work, I think, there's a lot of people that have a hard time separating what you do professionally and it kind of bleeds into your personal life as well. And I noticed that just getting to know a lot of, people that are in law enforcement, they kind of identify you in in your personal life and your professional. They kind of merge it together. They identify, Andy or anyone per se to be like, he's a cop.
Yes.
Watch out. Or like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? That persona or that, like,
Yeah.
how do you kind of deal with that? Because I know that's not easy.
No, I take it pretty lighthearted.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I don't mind. Just don't go screaming it out. If we're out, hanging out at a like if we're grabbing a beer with dinner or something
For
like that.
sure.
You don't need to announce the whole world that I'm a police officer. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
But I think that when I was younger, it definitely separated some of your real friends and people
Oh.
that kind of accept you for who you are. And
Definitely.
the same with family. I mean,
Yeah.
I wish that everybody's family was perfect and I'd put me out of business as a police officer.
Yeah.
But we deal with some people who have the complete drastic differences on different sides of the family. They may have, one side of the family is like pro law enforcement, really good. And then like the other side may be full of people that have been on the other side of the law, you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
for
So
sure.
anyways, when it comes to, for lack of a better term, getting called out on that stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
it doesn't usually bother me.
That's good.
But I will 100% admit, and I'm sure any of my fellow peace officers out there listening, it's kind of tough. It's tough to not be hyper vigilant. I recently took this. I shouldn't say took. I was assigned this training, and it was called CIT, Crisis Intervention Training. And the guys that had taught it were two former Marines, veterans of the Gulf conflict, and then they were former police officers at San Antonio PD. And I think that's one of the if I'm not mistaken, one of the top 10 largest law enforcement agencies in our country. It's a very, very big police department. I mean, huge precinct type police departments. We don't have any of those in Iowa. And anyways, these guys had kind of seen a lot and done a lot. And going back to that training, one of the things that really stuck out for me was like, it's hard for officers to shut that switch off when you're at home.
Yeah.
Like I was taught as a young police officer, don't bring work home with you,
Yeah.
and don't bring home to work with you.
Yeah.
And hypervigilance is one of those things that the cops can suffer from, like just extreme. Like the world is not always out to get you.
Yeah.
You know what I
for
mean?
sure,
There's
for
bad
sure.
guys out there doing bad things.
For sure.
Don't get me wrong. I try not to get caught lacking. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
But there's definitely it's okay. Like for example, you may notice like most cops don't like to sit with their back to a door.
Yeah, definitely.
Don't like to not be armed, which is fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. I'm a firm believer,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
stuff. But it's hard to kind of force per se let your guard down.
Yeah.
But it's unhealthy to be in a state of hypervigilance.
For sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can't imagine.
It's bad for you.
Yeah.
like you gotta relax a little bit. Like take the time to kind of just unwind. Like
Yeah.
be that protector.
Yeah.
And be there. But there's sometimes you just gotta kind of learn to just mellow out a little bit. So,
I can only imagine with the things that you guys kind of see and go through on a day-to-day basis, or just the 16, 17 years that you've been.
Yeah.
And that can be pretty challenging.
Well,
you know
and
what I mean?
what it derives from, I think, a lot of, especially for the guys at the other agencies that are even busier, where they're dealing with bad stuff constantly. It may
Yeah.
depend on your beat that day. You may have like a really, like you're dealing with a bad part of town, and that state of hypervigilance and stuff, because you deal with only the worst of people and the worst of times, constantly, day in and day out, and that takes a wear on you.
Definitely.
And it can take a wear on you. I've been fortunate that, like I said, I've served very law enforcement friendly communities.
Yeah.
And the bad times definitely are not nearly as common as the more mild calls for service. But the bad ones really stick out in your mind,
Yeah.
sometimes. And again, you see people at the worst of times and the worst of situations, and that's where that, like, you don't want to get caught slipping.
Yeah.
That was what we say,
For sure, for
You know.
sure. I even noticed like a lot of individuals that live in law enforcement, since you guys are so ingrained in the community, that a lot of them like to live on the outskirts, even though, we're kind of separated, just kind of be away from people because they have to deal with people on a day-to-day basis.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think it's important too, for me personally, to have friends that are not only police officers.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love my brothers in blue and sisters in blue.
Definitely.
But the thing of it is that, like, to have friends that are not in the same trade,
Yeah.
kind of helps keep you grounded.
For sure.
You know what I
For
mean?
sure.
It's. I mean, I get it. Like, we're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Only sometimes, like we always say, that sometimes only another police officer would understand certain situations.
Definitely.
But you got to have a circle outside of that too.
For sure. For sure.
I try to have a good mix.
Yeah.
A good ratio. You know what I mean?
You have a lot of hobbies.
I do.
You definitely do. I know you're into biking, you're into hunting, fishing. I'm not sure what else. Those are your three main hobbies. Is that right?
I'd say my vices. Yeah, I definitely, the cycling thing's new. I really fell in love with like gravel bikes. And I mean, we're in the state of Iowa, so
Yeah.
the majority of our roads are unpaved.
Yeah.
If you think outside of the cities.
Yeah.
And so I really fell in love with riding, and I ride with the Iowa Gravel Project. Sometimes with those guys with the group rides, it's a lot of fun. There's some real athletes on there.
sure.
I mean, if you've ever gravel traveled, is what we call it in our state here. Sometimes these inclines, these hills are crazy. We don't have mountains in this state.
Yeah.
But man, sometimes the hills in the summertime, it really beats on you.
Yeah.
But it's a good time. And it's also, as we've gotten older, it's a way for me and some of my buddies, to not feel as guilty about having a burger and a beer midweek. So we ride out, 20, 30 miles, whatever, to a restaurant, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Get our food, get our drink, and then
Yeah.
ride back and sweat it out. And, like I said, the hunting and fishing thing, the same thing. I grew up very fortunate. I had a dad that got me into that stuff. Again, he's not probably as head over heels as I am. I love it. I love to hunt, love to fish, love to spend time outdoors. And I don't know what it is. It's just like, I've had some really cool experiences. I've had, again, I've been fortunate to have some really good mentors that have kind of put into me that I always tell people that don't hunt or don't fish. It's not about only catching fish or, harvesting that animal. I mean, if you've never seen the sunrise on a marsh,
Yeah.
During duck season, and you hear the ducks start to come in, I feel bad for you. If you've never seen a pointing dog,
Yeah.
in a field,
Yeah.
lock up, like turn into a statue,
Yeah.
and that pheasant flush, I feel bad because that's an experience. Like it's really cool. The same thing
Yeah.
when you get that buck fever is what we call when that deer steps out in front of you and you get that heart rate up. I mean, it's just magic.
So that feeling, does that make you feel like you're really truly living life? I mean, like just because, I mean, being here being Iowa native, is that something that you just grew into just because of like your father, or how did you kind of get into those things? Is it just naturally you just got into it?
It's a combination of our family, my dad, and also because of like some of the friends I grew up with. I had a buddy in high school. I'll never forget his dad took us pheasant hunting one time.
Okay, gotcha.
And growing up pheasant hunting with my dad was more along the lines of we're going to road hunt, so which means you get in your truck, car, whatever it may be, you find them in the ditch,
Yeah.
and then you try to walk the ditch and get them to flush for you.
Oh,
you
okay.
know? And certain other people may not even do that. They might just roll the window down and shoot out the window, whatever it may be, but that's not my style, So anyways,
That's crazy.
Going back to it, my good buddy in high school, I haven't seen him in quite a while now.
Yeah.
His dad took us out actually pheasant hunting.
Oh, okay.
And he had these two German short hair pointers. One was liver and white, and the other one was kind of more of a like a roan colored, which is kind of like a gray.
Yeah.
And anyways, I'll never forget. Her name was Dixie.
Okay.
And I watched her working in front of us. Like I said, a pointing dog. The short hair, for those who don't pheasant hunt, is like the unofficial bird dog of Iowa, is what I always joke about. I've hunted over some really cool dogs as far as like labs and flushers, other dogs like that. one of my other good buddies I hunt with a lot, he has a pair of setters that are outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
But the first dog I ever shot a bird over was a short hair.
Okay.
And so she's working that field, and so they range in front of you, 20, 30 yards. And if it's a good dog, they'll come back and check on you.
Yeah.
But I watched her. Here I am, like, wow, man, I must have been like, what, 15? I don't think I could drive yet, 15 years old. And I watched her lock up on this pheasant. And I didn't know, I'm like, oh, she stopped.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, she's got a bird in front of her nose.
Yeah.
He's like, you ready? And I said, yeah. So we start walking up towards her, closer, closer. And all of a sudden, like, explosion.
Wow.
Pheasant comes up out of the grass, startles you a little bit. I was brand new, and then of course, boom, boom. I got it on the second or third shot. I don't remember, it's so long ago now. And I'm like, holy cow, that was incredible. Like, that's the coolest thing I had ever seen, that dog. And so it again, going back to it, it's not just about taking the animal. It's like watching the dog work and being with your friends and being with your family.
Yeah.
And it's really, like I said, I have a big passion for that stuff.
Yeah.
I really do enjoy it.
So I have a really good, actually he's a good friend of yours as well. He moved to Chicago and he still travels back here to hunt, fish, and he's just, true Iowa. I think it's a passion, and like, there's no amount of money that you can spend on those type of things because you guys truly enjoy doing that sport, even with friends and just like, in general, just like you guys love being out there.
And that's another fortunate, our mutual friend you're talking about. Yeah. We spend every fall or not even fall, but every winter. Yeah. During Iowa firearms season. Yeah. Chasing deer. And, I don't get me wrong. I like, shooting deer and bringing stuff to fill the freezer. Yeah. And our family really appreciates being able to eat some venison, Yeah. But I go out there to hang out with our buddy because I don't see him that often. Yeah. And that's our chance to spend a few days together. And it's him and two of our other friends and his family and guys he grew up with. He introduced me to them, and it's like I got welcomed back. And for anybody that deer hunts in Iowa, being a part of a group and being able to hunt with them every winter is a big deal. Like it's this close knit groups, For sure. So, anyways, I love spending time with him, and he lives the Iowa lifestyle, man. Still, even though he's unfortunately living in the state of Illinois now, but he like I said, I owe him a lot. I can't thank him enough, and it's a good time every time just to spend the time with him. So
for sure, let's transition into your family life.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say recently, but you have, 2 kids.
I do. I got a set of twin boys.
Twin boys. Yeah. All right. And so, that was, I got to be careful with this because, this is going to be on social media. So yeah, you were single for a really, really long time, and now you're a family man. Congratulations.
I was single for a long time. You know, so my girlfriend, when I met her, she had a little girl.
Yeah, yeah.
And she was, oh my gosh, what was she, 3? When we first started dating.
Yeah.
My bonus child is what I call her. Sweet kid.
Yeah.
And she calls me dad and everything. And she's got, her father's involved in her life too. And he's got a new wife, and she's got 2 sisters on that side. She got 2 brothers on our side.
Oh, okay.
And anyways, going back to the whole single thing. I was single for a long time. I really enjoyed my single life. I partied for quite a while and all that stuff, and I had a good time. After facing a little adversity in life, I honestly think that for kind of deviating a little bit, it made me closer. Obviously, my little brother grew real close with him.
Yeah,
obviously you're close with him too.
Yeah, definitely.
And gave me a chance to really become closer with my people that mattered.
Yeah.
And I didn't see that before because it was tough. Dark times are dark.
Yeah.
And the good times are great.
Yeah.
But I got to grow a little bit in that sense. And then when I met her, it really changed my life in the sense that it helped me grow up a little bit.
That's awesome.
Just kind of change in pace a little bit, and being a father is. Man, being a father is probably the most rewarding thing I can ever say. I don't know how to explain it. It's the most rewarding feeling, and it's the most trying of times. But I left my mark on the world.
For sure.
What I always say,
For sure.
I got 2 little boys that I always say the best parts of me and the best parts of their mother, and they're handsome little devils. I love them to death. The same with their sister, and they got my last name, so hopefully that gets to carry on down the road. And like I said, it's incredible what it does to you, because nothing else seems to matter now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not to matter, but everything you do now has changed. You know, I slowed down that lifestyle in the sense that, like, you know, now it's time to focus on being a good dad. You want to be, you know, you want to do the best you can, because it's about the kids.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure.
so
So what is the hardest part about being a father?
the hardest part about being a father, I honestly,
Uh-huh.
is learning to be patient.
Oh, really?
Oh man,
Yeah.
kids will say the darndest things, and they will try your patience day in and day out. They will do things, and they will do it with a smile on their face that they know they shouldn't do.
Yeah.
But when you look at them, you can't help but see a little bit of yourself. One of my boys, the slightly younger one, that's about 30 seconds younger than his brother. When I see him, I mean, I look at him in the eyes, and he's just the sweetest boy. And he's got a hot temper like I did when I was a kid. But then he's got this little kind of half crooked smile. And I mean, even my parents say, my uncles and everybody, like, oh, he looks just like you when you were a kid, you
For
know?
sure.
And when you see them acting up and doing things they shouldn't do, and they do that smile, it's like, you can't help but, like, all right, you know. So it's learning to be patient. And don't get me wrong, I don't know one dad out there that has not lost their cool.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm at a tough age now. They're going to be 4 in February, and it's tough because they parrot me.
Yeah.
So they say things like in perfect context sometimes when it comes to swearing and stuff, and I got to really watch their grandmother. My mother really puts me in check. Like, you got to watch what you're saying in front of them. You know? So it's tough. I'd say patience is definitely the hardest, one of the harder aspects of being a father. And then, you know, I just trying to always trying to do right by them.
Yeah.
I think the standard you set for yourself is harder than anybody else. So I'd say that's probably one of the more challenging aspects as well.
For sure.
But
But I hear a lot too from other parents. You imagine how your kid's going to be, or what they should be growing up, right? Or imagine they're going to be. Are they the complete opposite of what you thought they were going to be, or how does that? Is that right? Is that spot on, or is that how does that kind of come into play in terms of your kids?
I'd honestly say that's pretty close.
Really?
Because, like, you know, I in my head, well, I should say when the baby's born, baby or babies in my sense, plural, you know, they're perfect.
Yeah.
In the eyes of a parent, they're perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you just, like, any expectation you had in your head, you don't know, because the first thing you do when the baby's born, you know, you put on the bunny suit, you know, and then the doctor comes in. I'll never forget. He says to me, he's like, "All right, let's have some kids," you know? And I'm just like, all right, that's it, you know?
Yeah,
He's like, all right, Dad, let's do it.
Yeah.
You know? And it just happens to be so fast sometimes. Like, even from, I remember, I feel like it was just yesterday when they're from, you know, fingertip to elbow, and now they're running around talking. They sound like me, you know, act like me.
For sure.
But like that mental image of what you expect your kids to be, I think is kind of short lived.
Yeah.
Because when it all comes to head in reality, it's just like, that's, you can't expect, I mean, you wouldn't expect any different.
Yeah.
You know what I
and
mean?
what I'm kind of asking is and I don't think you're quite there yet in terms of, like, when they grow up to be like teenagers and their own person, that's going to be a different experience, I think, for you and just everybody else, you know, because I hear so many stories of, like, you thought your kid is going to do this or pursue this, you know, career or love this sport, but they have their own kind of mind of what they want to become or what they want to, you know what I mean? Does that make sense of what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I try my hardest as a dad to not have, I mean, they're little baby boys, you know, 4.
Yeah.
Gonna be 4.
Yeah.
And their sister's the same. She's gonna be 8 in April.
Yeah.
And I try not to have an unrealistic expectation for children.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you want so bad for them to love what you love, and you want so bad for them to do right by you, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just like, I mean, we grew up with Asian parents, you know, and it's not that they don't validate you if you're not a doctor or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's tough.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, I can say honestly that my dad's a loving father. But he's not a man of many words.
Mine either.
You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. And I don't know many Asian dads that are.
No.
And I try my hardest to be expressive. I think it's important. And this is going back to being a police officer too.
Yeah.
It's important to tell your kids you love them.
For sure.
To to kind of nurture,
Yeah.
let them feel that.
Yeah.
Because I think that it's an important part of them growing up. That's a core memory.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you don't, I mean, I hate to sound cliche. You don't want to have like, oh, my dad's disappointed in me.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? You don't want
definitely.
him to think that.
No, no.
So yeah,
I
it's,
think just like you just touched on in terms of the Asian culture, it's really hard. Even my father, he was very just tough nose, like he didn't show a lot of emotion, but made me, remodel the whole house with him
yeah.
and do all these things I hated to do, work on, the engine. I mean, we're taking out a whole transmission and putting it back together.
Yeah.
But it taught me something, like that grit and that, hard like love. Even though like I always watch TV shows of what you're kind of saying is like, I was like, wait, why don't my parents like, or I shouldn't say my parents, but because my mother, she's very, kind and loving.
Same.
But my dad was very just hard gritted. But it made me, I wouldn't trade it for anything else just because growing up and going to school, it kind of made me have that hard side dealing with like bullies and things of that sort and trying to, you know what I mean? It
Yeah.
gives you that grit.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if I can't remember how old you told me before, but my dad came when he was, I think, 15, 16. He lost his father at a pretty young age
Yeah.
when they came to the United States.
Yep.
And I will 100% admit the work ethic that they
Yep.
have, the first generation came here, you
Yeah.
know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's like unbelievable.
It is.
Like my dad knows nothing but to wake early and come
Yep.
home late.
Yep.
That's how he live. Like that's how he works. You
Yep.
know, all dads. I mean, uncles. Everybody in our family is like that. And it's like I can't even fathom. You know, my dad told me put in perspective. He's like, "You're doing just fine." And again, not a man of many words, but he said it, in Taidam. He goes, "You guys are doing just fine." He says, "You got to remember when we first came here, we didn't have anything.
Yeah.
We didn't have anything." He says, "I took
Yeah.
my first job for $3 an hour back,
Yeah.
And it's like, man, maybe it's not so tough.
Yeah,
I think
for
that,
sure.
but again, going back to it, parents always want, like, just like me, now that I'm a father,
Yeah.
you always want better for your kids than you did.
You do.
I mean, I don't know many parents out there that would be per se envious or jealous of how their kids live.
Yeah.
If they're doing better than you, you've done right.
Yeah.
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
Yeah.
And that's what I think that ultimately it always comes down to.
For
Yeah.
sure. I feel like I would be doing an injustice to my parents, and all the aunts and uncles that have worked so hard that come overseas from Laos.
Yeah.
And since they didn't have all the skills and knowledge of how to do things, I think it's challenging, you know what I mean? And so it's like it's tough for them. I mean, like I see some kids growing up now just taking advantage of certain things, and I just like if you work hard and you're a student and you're willing to learn, anything's possible here in the United
Absolutely.
States. No, seriously.
Yeah,
So
I mean, my it's funny because again, our fathers are not men of many words.
no,
But
no.
like, for example, going back to, our buddy deer hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in our state, we have this, they call it the Hush program. You can
Mm.
donate venison to the prison industries and they can feed like, less fortunate people. And my dad says, he says, "Man, this is unbelievable."
Yeah.
I said, "What, Dad?" And I remember this is years ago. He told this to me. He says, "Only in this country, this is a great country, would inmates and homeless people, less fortunate people, get to eat venison." He says, "Back home," he says, "we don't have enough protein to go around, And it's hell. I find it. I shouldn't laugh, but I find it funny because
Yeah.
he said it so like it's like, oh man, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
says compared to other countries, he says we'll never run like, and it's kind of. I mean, you take it with a grain of salt, but it's like we live in a world of convenience. He
We
says,
do.
where we live now, he's like, you guys, we're in a great state, great country. He's very appreciative. I've always got, he's he knows, he loves being an American,
Yeah, for sure.
an Asian American.
For sure.
At that. It's cool growing up like that because you get the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah.
Never forget your identity.
Yeah.
But you kind of learn, like we grew up in the Midwest here.
Yeah, for sure.
And he says, like, when it comes to food, he's like, you guys, I remember my little brother and I fighting over food before. And I try to teach my kids the same thing. You do not need to fight over food. Like, there is no reason to fight over food,
For sure.
He says, we can go to, if you're hungry, we will go buy more food. Don't fight over food. You do not know what it's like. And I'm like, man,
sure.
that's deep.
No,
Thinking
for
about
sure.
that now, that's real.
Yeah,
He says,
yeah.
because, we come from big families, but he's got a lot of brothers.
Yeah,
He says,
yeah.
you guys don't know what it's like if you didn't eat, you weren't going to eat at all.
For sure.
And And he's like, it's just the two of you guys. We'll buy more food. Don't fight over it.
Yeah.
We'll get more if you need it. You know, I'm like, man, that's real.
My parents would always talk about how, between 5 to 8 people, they would share, 2 to 3 eggs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back here in America, I mean, I eat 4 or 5 by myself. I don't think I'll make it over there.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And then do you remember how big of a treat it was as a kid to go to McDonald's?
Yeah, it's huge.
I think that my little kids have been spoiled.
For sure.
They I mean, don't get me wrong, they love eating rice and stuff. It's cool. They get the best of both worlds. They get the Asian food, Lao food, and also the American food, naturally.
Yeah.
But I remember the stereotypical saying like, "Oh, we got food at home."
Yeah.
We don't need to stop at McDonald's. We got food at home,
Yep.
And looking at it now, it's like the things have shifted. Because I think kids our age that are starting families, it's like, oh yeah, let's go to McDonald's and let's go to go eat. It doesn't matter.
For sure.
I mean, I think as growing up in family, I mean, I don't know about you guys. We probably went out to eat like once a month.
Yeah, for us, not even. It would be a rare. I mean, like
it is.
It would have to be a special occasion, whether it's like a birthday or someone graduated.
Exactly. And then now I'm like thinking, man, we went out like 3 times, 4 times a week sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't remember last time we cooked food at home.
For
and
sure.
I feel bad, but at the same time, I don't sweat it because we're fortunate that we can do that.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure. For sure.
So yeah, you just try not. Some of the kids, they get so spoiled with that stuff.
Definitely. What is your take? So with all the technology, and I've seen kids growing up now. They're no fault to you because that's what we're growing up in is kids are all stuck on their iPad. They love their iPads,
man.
and like back in the days when you and I grew up. We're playing outside, and I was getting scars from riding bikes and doing this and playing outside. And nowadays, it's a rarity to see kids play outside and just like commingling with their neighbors. How do you kind of balance that in raising your own kids to not just be, I don't want to say socially awkward because they have each other, but just being stuck on their iPad 24/7. What are the kind of the challenges that you face?
So the boys have just recently gotten to the point they love tablets. They love playing like video games on there.
Yeah.
And I caved and surprised them a while back. I bought a Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
And they love that thing. They love playing Wii Sports on it.
Yeah.
Badminton and tennis. And I said, I hope that the golf. I hope you like the country club sports growing up later, because maybe you love golf or tennis, or whatever. That'd be cool,
Yeah.
And anyways, they recently started fighting over them. I mean, I'm like, man, and I'm not you know me well enough. I'm not a gamer.
Yeah.
Like I don't get me wrong. I enjoy playing video games every now and then. But if
Yeah.
you had to ask me, would you like? And I grew up playing sports too, right? Football, basketball. I grew up playing those in high school and middle school. If you had to ask me. Would you rather watch football, like college football? And I love college football. I'm an Iowa fan.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Would you rather watch football on a Saturday? Or would you rather go hunt? I said I'd rather go hunt.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable because if you had to ask like my little brother, for example, no way, no way. Nothing's getting in the way of Saturday morning football.
It's true.
And so the kids going back to it too. Their mother really does do a good job of keeping them in check. I'm very appreciative of her.
Oh, okay.
She make sure, and I love spending time outdoors, but I don't always love going on neighborhood walks and stuff like that. I'll admit I'm kind of lazy sometimes when it comes to that.
I get
but
it.
they love riding their little like Strider bikes and all that stuff. And I'm really refreshed when they want to go outside because they do ask to go outside pretty often.
Yeah.
And then of course grandpa and grandma.
Yeah.
We didn't have a playground in the backyard growing up.
Yeah.
Of course, my boys were born, and they all of a sudden they bought a playground and built it for them in the backyard, and
That's awesome.
they're enjoying that. So that's their way of burning some energy off. I think it's tough. Like I always tell their big sister that tablet can be a great tool,
Definitely,
or it can really get you in trouble.
Yeah.
So you need to kind of just
moderate.
Be in moderation.
Yeah, for
Enjoy
sure.
in moderation.
I can only imagine the challenges because they just want to be on it. I mean, there's so many fun games.
Oh yeah.
Like it's just kind of like an easy escape in terms of like if you guys were to go out to eat, it's easy to distract them with an iPad. You know what I mean? It's I think it's like something that no one has the answer to in terms of like making it perfect, but everyone has their own parenting style, right?
The longer I've been a parent, honest to God,
Yeah.
the longer I've been a parent, the more I believe that all of us as parents are living one big, like the same life.
Seriously.
I don't know one set of parents that have not turned on Bluey at a dinner table when you're out at a restaurant on the tablet,
Yeah.
so you can eat.
Yeah.
Like it's just the way it is. You know what I mean? And we didn't have that as kids.
No.
I didn't have any of that stuff. So you
No.
better behave, otherwise we're gonna leave.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, yes.
But in today's day and age, like I don't think when it comes to that, it's all in moderation. And again, very humble, personal opinion.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
all in moderation. And if you're like I'm hard on myself as a parent sometimes too. Like, man, maybe I was too hard on the kids, or maybe whatever. When it comes to that stuff, maybe I
Yeah.
shouldn't have turned that on just to distract them.
Yeah.
You're doing just fine. I've been reaffirmed in that sense. It's
For sure.
Everyone's doing just fine.
So as they get older, are you going to, bring them out more in terms of when they're ready to go hunting, fishing, and ice fishing, and all those things to, like, just expose them to the nature? Or do you think I don't want to necessarily say force them, but are you going to are you going to get them into sports? Or are you going to get them into the hobbies that you kind of enjoy? What is your take on that?
I hope to let them kind of make that decision on their own. If
Oh,
they love
cool.
what I love, is when it comes to sports.
Yeah.
And like growing up playing. I honestly think, again, on my very humble personal opinion.
Yeah.
Playing sports as a team
Uh-huh.
is a passage of rite as a teenager. You should experience that.
Yeah, for sure.
You should try that. Like if you've never played high school football in our state, it's pretty big. We're not Texas,
For sure.
but in Iowa,
Yeah.
I was fortunate. I went to a pretty big school, played
Yeah.
on a football team. I wasn't a starter,
Yeah.
but I went through the whole thing. Like, Saturday morning stretch run film, Friday night lights,
Yeah.
things of that nature,
Yeah.
and then conditioning because you get in trouble. Like you should experience that.
For sure.
It humbles you, and it makes you a tougher person.
For sure.
You know what I mean? And it's that team mentality and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So I would encourage my kids. I hope that they want to try playing sports. I
Yeah.
would love it if they did.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the outdoor stuff,
Yeah.
obviously it's a big passion of mine.
Uh-huh.
I'm geared up to the hilt with that stuff. And there's always new gear to be had, but I hope that I can really experience that with them someday. If they don't, I'll be 100% honest. I'll be a little disappointed.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I get it. It's
sure.
not for everybody, because either you love it or you don't.
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Sports, teaches you something that you can't necessarily teach your kids, because that camaraderie with other kids, and just not being, whether you're not the star athlete and things of that sort, just learning how to play as a team, and just like your place in life and how you can translate that growing up. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You know what
I was just telling the story earlier today to some other guys I was talking to. I said, I will never forget the disciplinary type of conditioning we did. Basketball, football, they ran your tails off. Like if coach smelled, how it worked was Monday through Wednesday was full pad practice.
Yeah.
Thursday is usually, we call it high thud, just shorts and shoulder pads.
Yep.
And then Friday night football game, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then Saturday morning stretch run film. And I will never forget, we being young men, you party hard, you drink, whatever on Friday night, underage drinking.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
you get in that crowded room on Saturday morning, and everyone's like a little hungover.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, you sit there and coach taking a little whiff, and he's like, all right. All right.
man.
You guys want to be men. You want to party hard? We're going to work hard today. And he ran it out of us. I will never forget. Yeah. Like on Saturday morning, and he ran us till we about throwing up,
Yep.
Like
Yep.
we're going to get it out of your system. You're going to sweat it out today.
Yep.
And I think that's, again, one of those passages of rights you should experience.
For sure.
You should, if you've never had a coach grab you by the face mask, or, you never had a basketball coach screaming at you, you better, sit your tail down on the bench.
It's scary.
And be quiet.
Yeah.
You should experience.
It is.
It does.
It teaches you to have some cojones, or something.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. I would love. It's funny because the boy's mother was in the OR as in orthopedics as a nurse, and she's seen some pretty good sports injuries. So she's not against contact sports at all.
Oh, she's not.
A lot of Asian parents everyone's always afraid of breaking legs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's the truth.
It's the truth.
It's the truth. But if they got into country club sports, it wouldn't break her heart. And I
Yeah.
say country club sports lovingly, like
Yeah.
your tennis,
Yeah.
your golf,
Yeah.
things of that nature.
Is she opposed to football?
No.
No. She's okay with it.
Yeah, she'd be all right. It would be my dream come true.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty big guy.
Yeah.
If the boys were about 6'4", towered over me a little bit, but had about 2-3 inches on me.
Yeah.
6'4", 6'5".
Yeah.
And wanted to play football. or basketball,
Yeah.
I would 100% be okay with that too. you know?
Wow.
But if they don't
That's
want to,
awesome.
I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of like their career and stuff like that, if they wanted to pursue what you do,
It's funny you mentioned that.
would you allow it?
It's not even allow. I would discourage it.
Really?
I would, and I say that lovingly. Law enforcement has been good to me. I can honestly say I'm halfway through my career.
Yeah.
I didn't realize the advantages again until you get older, right? When you're younger, you don't see the advantages to starting your career early,
Yeah.
and having like insurance benefits. Who gives? Nobody cares about that.
Yeah.
You're young and you just want to make money, right?
Yeah.
But now as I've gotten older, I really see the advantages of like, oh man, I was very fortunate to start at 20 because I can probably retire when I'm 50
Yeah.
and be done with it.
Yeah.
And so if they really wanted to, I would encourage them regardless. But if they wanted to do something different, it wouldn't break my heart.
Really?
If they wanted to follow my like footsteps, so to speak, I'd be okay with that. But
Yeah.
again, I want them to do better than me.
Oh, I see.
You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Yeah, their mom's in the medical field. She went to graduate school and everything now, and she started her career, loves it.
Yeah.
And if they wanted to follow mom's footsteps, I'd be just as proud as if they, and honestly, when it comes down to it, I've had that conversation with, or not, I shouldn't say conversation, but I've had that thought by myself. I would like to think I would be just as proud if they were, skilled laborers,
Yeah.
as they would, like, I would say, for lack of a better term, a white collar job,
Yeah,
in the office or whatever it may be.
For sure.
Just like you said earlier, you owe it to your parents to try to do better than them.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's a real thing. You owe it to your parents to try to be better than them.
Yeah.
But it's just tough because what's better than them?
Yeah.
You know
exactly.
what I mean? I don't know. Like I said, is being a doctor or scientist, is that necessarily better than them?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
But would it break their heart if you were working a factory job or
Yeah.
a skilled labor job, a welder or
Yeah.
a mechanic or something like that?
Yeah.
I don't think it would. It wouldn't break my heart.
I think for us, or maybe just seeing them the struggle coming over to America, and then just being able to provide with little to nothing. I think that's the most challenging. I think that kind of instilled in me, like, whether it's the, having a nice home or and just food in general, just like some of the things that we take for granted,
Yeah.
like food, right? And so it's like seeing them work multiple jobs and maybe not being the most, but they were able to make the best of what they had. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
and so like, and I think both of our families don't come from, a lot of money. And so it's a humbling thing to try to be better. And it's not more or less of the title or the compensation that we make. It's just living better lives just to make them happy, hopefully.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that honestly, our parents just want to see us succeed
Yeah.
in any aspect.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I will 100% admit again, my dad being a man of not very many words.
Yeah.
He says it with a little bit of, I can feel that proudness he assumes. He doesn't say like, he doesn't say flat out, hey, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's not his his love language, so to speak. But like you said, my dad's same thing. We do projects around the house together. That's our way of bonding. We go fishing together.
Yeah.
But again, when he said, when he tells people that his son is a police officer, you can feel that proudness
That's
about
awesome.
it, or whatever. I feel that at least.
Yeah.
He says it with like, he's doing good and whatever it may be.
So as you're getting close to 40 years old, I should say 40. You're not there yet.
You're not wrong. So again, I'm 36, but I'm closer to 40 than I am to 30, right?
For sure. Do you find yourself, as you're seeing, relatives, for me, my grandpa passed away and my aunt passed away as well, do you find yourself spending more time with your parents and the elderly, especially even with their grandkids and stuff like that? Do you find yourself trying to spend more time with them now that you realize they're not going to be here forever?
I do. You know what? Life's short.
Yeah.
I lost my grandpa in 2008. I know you just lost your grandpa recently. I remember that. We were all together.
Yeah.
And, a lot of times the grandparents are kind of the matriarch of the family. They hold things down,
They do.
And when it comes to spending time, like our parents are getting older.
Yeah.
We've had that conversation. You and I've had that conversation.
Yeah.
Our parents are getting older. We're getting older.
Yeah.
And I try my hardest now to live that life where like I don't want to have regrets. No grudges.
Yeah.
Spend time. Take the picture.
Yeah.
Things of that nature. Take the trip.
Yeah.
Whatever it may be. Not live recklessly. Just take the time to do it because you
Mm-hmm.
might not have a chance. I was mentioning about like my uncle, my dad. They want to go to Southeast Asia again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my uncle, it's kind of profound when he said it the other night at Christmas. He goes, "Well, I want to go when I still can."
Exactly.
Because all of a sudden, what if something happens, you get sick, or you have a condition, you can't travel that far?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, man, that's real talk.
Yeah.
Like he really wants to go. And so, yeah, I try to spend some time with dad. I will 100% admit, I laugh about it now. I get calls from my dad more than I ever did before. And I'm like, I thought it was like something wrong at first. It's not because he calls about me. He calls about his grandkids. He 100%. He calls. He says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Nothing. Where are the boys at?" I said, "It's good to hear you from you too, Dad. Whatever it may be." And we don't live that far apart.
Yeah.
But he just like it's all about the grandkids.
Yeah.
Now. It softened him up a little
For
bit.
sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They get away with so much more than I ever did. So yeah, we do spend time together now because of the grandkids too, more than we did before.
Yeah.
But my dad and I always were on good terms. We fished together a lot.
Yeah.
I tried to get him out and do some hunting or whatever. We would travel together. And the cool part about having an unconventional schedule like I did with law enforcement, or like I do, I should say,
Yeah.
is that I would get random days off sometimes. And so it's kind of nice because he used to always have the end of the week off. Sometimes he'd be done on Thursday at a decent hour, or Friday he'd have off. A lot of Fridays he had off.
Yeah.
So that would be our day to spend time together.
Yeah.
And whether it was like fixing a car or getting some lunch or just small stuff like that. Those are times I try not to take for granted. And those are definitely times I still try to, or I should say moments I still try to make time for.
For sure. And how about your brother? I know that you guys are really, really close. And
Yeah.
he's a true social butterfly. Like,
He is. That guy.
That man.
He's a party animal.
He should run for governor, but
You know what's funny is that it's wild because his baby girl,
yeah.
she's sweet. She's like a doll.
Yeah.
And I love being an uncle too.
Yeah.
And she's not only looks like him.
Yeah.
She's a social baby.
For sure.
She's not afraid of anybody.
For sure.
She gets around and makes her rounds. If you watch her at a party, she's
Yeah.
running around and talks to everybody.
That's awesome.
And it's just like that, And so yeah, he's a social butterfly.
He really
but
is.
we spend time together. I love the fact this is real too. Again, he works in the area I work in, so we will get lunch together sometimes when we're both working. I get days off randomly during the week. He'll hit me up. We go get lunch together. It's our time to kind of chop it up and catch up on things and all that stuff. And
For sure.
I'm very fortunate that I have that relationship with my brother.
For sure.
And his wife. They've always had my back, always been in my corner, carried me through some dark times before.
For sure.
They're
amazing people.
They're amazing people.
No, they really are.
They are.
They really are.
Big-hearted people.
Yeah, for sure.
And like I said, I remember when I was going. You remember what it was like when I was going through some adversity there.
For sure.
Failed relationships and tough at work.
Yeah.
Man, it brought us closer, you and me.
For sure.
And he really picked me up. The little brother doing the big brother stuff, kind of keep me on that path. And
Yeah.
like I said, even though we always joke that he doesn't know how to hold a fish or anything like that. And if you ask him about it, he come on, man. But
Oh, the God.
we do.
That was funny.
The other thing that we really bond over is golf.
For sure. Yeah.
He and I love to golf. That's another vice of mine.
Yeah.
I love to golf too. I'm not great at it.
Yeah.
But I do. A good day for me is breaking 100. If I'm
For
breaking
sure.
if I'm breaking 90, that's an outstanding day.
For sure.
But
For sure.
the point is that we get out and do it together.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's something that we definitely hope to take the kids out someday. And another thing with our family's growing bigger.
Yeah.
So we even have a couple of cousins' husbands and stuff like that, fiancés that they love to golf too.
Yeah.
And we even have a group chat that's just dedicated to golf.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it's awesome because it really again that social side of things.
Yeah.
And it's a way to bond.
For sure. I think one of the biggest things that I appreciate about your brother is anytime I need to fill that social bucket, he's more than willing to, invite me in with welcome arms. Like he's a guy that isn't like exclusive. Like he's like, if you want to or if you want to like hang out and have some fun, I'm more than like they're always having people at their house and just having a good time.
Yeah, he's he's always meaning well with that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely a
Definitely.
social butterfly.
Yeah.
Loves to be the life of the party.
Yeah.
You know how he is.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I'm appreciative of that because
For sure.
you know, and he's one of the ones that we talked about earlier. You know, like he likes to joke with me, give me a hard time about
Yeah,
being
yeah.
a cop. You know,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
it may be. But it's all in love.
Yeah,
it
for
really
sure.
is genuinely in love.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I take it in stride.
Yeah,
I
for sure.
expect to catch some hell over it sometimes, you know, whatever it may be. He likes to tease about it, but we've been over there late nights over at his house,
For
you know,
sure. For
and
sure.
but it's a good time, and he's you know, I'm fortunate to have a brother like that,
Definitely,
you know,
definitely.
and yeah,
Another thing that I wanted to ask you about is what is the type of impact that you want to make on your kids in terms of if Andy wasn't here tomorrow, how do you want your kids to remember you by? I know that's a little bit deep, but I know.
man, that's deep. That's deep.
Is there anything in particular that you want them to remember you by in terms of, how they should be as a person, or because, at the end of the day, once you pass, they resemble you or
Yeah,
like
that's
represent
all I
you.
got left. I left my mark. Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. You left your mark. And so is there anything that you would want if they saw this, God forbid, I'm just saying, like, if you weren't here, well, how would you want them to remember you, Andy, by?
well, I'll run with that a little bit.
Okay.
It's funny because if you think about it, right, the military world and law enforcement world,
Yeah.
two obviously, you know, serving type of careers. Those are one of the, if you think about it, two of the few professions you're willing to knowingly
Yeah.
put yourself in harm's way,
Yep.
potentially be killed
Yep.
for strangers.
Yeah.
That's a real thing.
Yeah.
And I made peace with that a long time ago.
Yeah.
I don't want to die.
That gives me goosebumps.
Yeah,
But
no, but I don't want to
no.
die. But I definitely, like, that's a real thing. Like, you have to be, like, I would put myself in harm's way for a stranger.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And let alone for my loved ones.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
again, you know, I try to, you know, for example, it sounds kind of, not morbid at all, but I always try to make sure to leave the house and say goodbye, say I love you when I get a chance to, because I don't want it to be the last time I like leave the house and I don't come home.
Yeah.
That they didn't hear that.
Yeah.
You know, didn't see that. Even if it's a bad night
Yeah.
or a bad morning,
Yeah.
I want them to know that that's how, you know, that's how
awesome.
it is. And if I guess, you know, I always want them to know that dad loves them. Dad's doing everything he can for them.
Yeah.
And that, you know, they're never alone. They got a great support system. They got, you know,
really do.
they got, you know, their uncle, their aunts,
Yeah.
grandparents on both sides, aunts and uncles on both sides, all my friends and family and stuff like that. I'm very fortunate. We come from a culture where we're raised by a village. I mean, if you talk to the majority of kids our age, like, you know how close we are with our aunts and uncles.
Yeah.
They help raise you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they impact your life. And of course, it's taught to you when you're young. You know, what wedding have you or party have you not gone to?
Yeah.
And then an uncle, even if they're not really your uncle, you address them as uncle. You don't remember who I am?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Whatever. It's important that you again, you know, recognize they may have, you know, help tote you around when you were little.
For sure.
Even if you don't know it, you know.
For sure.
So I'd always say that you're not alone.
Yeah.
And you know, dad loves you. Dad's always gonna be there for you,
For sure.
no matter what.
For sure.
Even if you're trying me,
Yeah.
you know, dad's got your back.
Yeah.
And you know, do better than me.
For sure.
You know?
For sure. Another question that I had for you that stuck out to me is you were able to find a lot of mentors in your life. And I really don't believe that those happened by accident, because I wouldn't be the person I am today if I didn't have mentors.
Oh, for sure.
How did you, and I don't think that the mentors that came into your life came by accident. And
No.
so how do you, you know, with guiding your kids instead of, you know, telling them, you know, just because I have some of my mentors that I don't always listen to. I will listen to what they have to say, but I will always have my own aspect of how I want to run my life, right? And so the mentors that you have met in your life and, you know, just guiding this is a two-pronged question, but, you know, finding those mentors are not easy. They don't come by accident. Sometimes whether they're in law enforcement or you have to kind of seek them as well. How would you tell your kids of how to find the right mentors for them. Like, do you have any words of wisdom of like, how you kind of approached, finding some of your mentors and how you would guide them? Does that make sense?
It's almost, I don't think I've ever had one that I've sought out.
Yeah.
They've kind
Yeah.
of, I've kind of fallen into them. Like you said, it doesn't happen by accident.
It's like a friendship.
Yeah,
It really is like
it
a
really
two-way
is.
friendship, right?
And it's tough culturally again,
Yeah.
because you like in our culture, it would be odd for our parents, for example, to have friends that are way older than them.
Right.
But the way we grow up, I
Yeah.
have friends that are, 50, 60 years old. And some of them are my mentors. One of my, so for example, like not only in law enforcement, but, hunting and fishing. He helped groom that love of the outdoors in me as a younger guy.
Yeah.
His sons are my age. They were living out of state. I think they might still live out of state now. But we spent a lot of time outdoors together. Not at all by any means like a replacement for my dad or anything like that. It's just that's one of our big things we have in common.
For sure.
He really like instilled that love of like of hunting.
Yeah.
And I owe ice fishing to him. I love the ice fish. You know
Yeah.
how much time I spend.
Yeah.
And he took me out the first time, and I'll never forget. He tells me, "You're either gonna love this, or you're gonna hate it."
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
The same thing with like going after turkey.
Yep.
Turkey hunting. I love it's the most rewarding, most frustrating thing because they're really smart, dumb birds, is what I always say. But like that and waterfowl. I mean, he got me into this stuff, opened my eyes to it. Along with like my buddy's dad growing up in high school, he took out pheasant hunting for the first time.
Yep.
And then when it comes to like professional mentors, again, I don't think that you really seek them out. They kind
agree.
of you just happen to have that relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of my first ones was when I first started in that small town. My chief of police there, he was a very passionate firearms and rifle instructor.
Yep.
Instilled that in me, and I owe it to him because I'm a firearms instructor and a
Yep.
rifle instructor myself.
Yep.
The things he taught me and the base he set in me as far as that stuff is what I try to pass on today.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and because I mean, I really owe it to him. I enjoy the heck out of like the shooting sports.
Yep.
I shoot competitively for fun with the local gun club.
Yep.
And there's just a lot to be gained from it, and it helps make me a better trainer.
Yeah.
Helps me be a confident police officer.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to go out and go use my pistol, but I'm just we always say that people like I try to put it in perspective, especially when I go teach at the academy. Like the firearms stuff, you may not be a gun person, if you will,
Yeah.
but this is a tool,
It is.
and you like a carpenter would know how to use a hammer. As a police officer,
Yeah.
you should know how to use a firearm.
Yeah.
That's
Definitely.
part of your job.
Yep.
It's no different than writing a report.
Yep.
Like you should be as good at writing a report as you are with a firearm, and vice versa.
For sure.
You got to be confident in that stuff. So
For sure.
yeah, that's another mentor I had, and like I said, it's a very, very big passion of mine that was instilled in me, luckily. And the personal mentors, like again, I don't think you ever
Seek them out.
Yeah.
It's kind of what it sounds like is like, and I didn't realize this either after hearing you speak, is like it's more or less of you find hobbies and then you find people that kind of just have whether you guys gel together or not. It's not a forced relationship.
not at all.
Yeah.
It's common ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. For sure.
Like I said, that's two of the things. It's a lot of common ground, and then you realize that a lot of times they are older than you.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily just because that's a prerequisite.
Yeah.
It's more along the lines because they've probably experienced more life than you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah.
And a lot of times it's like lessons hard learned.
Yeah. For
And
sure.
it's beyond hearing it from a parent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
So.
And then there's not a lot of people out there too that whether, you're older or younger is to kind of necessarily kind of take them under your wing and kind of be that mentor. But it's to me, I've realized that it's not always just one teaching the other. You are able to provide something that to them that you kind of don't realize or see, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, that same mentor that kind of got the outdoors into me, right? It's funny because ice fishing, oh man, the bug bit me so hard. And your brother-in-law and I spend a lot of time together too,
Yeah.
And we love it.
Yeah.
And so going back to it, when I first went out, I had like 2 ice rods, wearing Carhartt bibs and all
Yeah.
that stuff. And
Yeah.
next year you get a little more gear.
Yeah.
A little more gear because I love it and I'm spending
Yeah.
more. And then pretty soon I'm spending money on electronics and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then going back to my mentor, he sees me succeed with this stuff and he's like, man, he says, if it wasn't for you, like learning and doing all this stuff,
Yeah.
I'd still be using the same stuff I used, 20 years ago,
Yeah.
30 years ago.
For sure.
And so it's it teaches both ways.
Yeah.
And, or like, so that same mentor, like I got, pretty advanced piece of, electronics for ice fishing.
Yeah.
He finally broke down and bought one last season because he saw the amount of success we were having together. And he says, I'm telling you, he says, I need you to help me set this up first off and help me teach me how to run this thing.
Yeah.
But he says, man, he's like, this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I would have never imagined I'd be to have one of these because I saw how well it worked for us together, fishing together.
Yeah.
So like you said, that teaching goes both ways.
Yeah, for sure.
My whole life is a teachable moment is what I say.
Mine too.
Yeah. I mean, I'm out here. And that's another thing that was taught to me as a young cop too.
Yeah.
And it applies to both the just regular life and law enforcement. The day you stop learning,
Yeah.
you might as well hang it up, man.
Yeah.
Because you've officially been a closed-minded person. You will
Yeah.
never learn it all. You will never know it all.
I agree.
And so you should really strive to learn something different. Get out of your comfort zone sometimes. Learn something different. Try something different.
Yeah.
Whether it's day to day or whatever.
Yeah.
And even when it comes to another thing, when it comes to stepping outside your comfort zone, I've learned quickly that sometimes people, if you give them a chance, will surprise you in a pleasant way.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
That's that. I love that.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
I feel like, if you are willing to learn and move your ego out of the way, no matter how old you are, and a combination of hard work and the willingness to learn, it's a dangerous combination here in America. I mean, like, you are literally, you can do anything here. And if you're willing to learn and work hard at it and be consistent, anything's achievable. And I think it's not really a secret. I think people just don't realize that if you just do those two things, you can literally learn anything.
It's the land of opportunity. I mean,
it really is.
I'm a pretty conservative guy. I mean, you know me well enough.
Yeah.
I live a pretty moderate.
You do.
I do. I'm very I'm a routine guy.
You are. Yep.
But when it comes to, like you said, if you put in the hard work, you grind it out. Honestly, and this is from our parents that taught us this. You put in the work. Yeah. You grind it out, and you're willing to learn. You can do anything.
Seriously.
You can do anything. There's no shortage, and I would I try to instill that in the kids.
Yeah.
My stepdaughter, the boy's big sister, she's had confidence issues before as a kid, as a young girl. Yeah. And I'm trying my hardest to teach her that, there is nothing that a girl cannot do in this world. Agreed. I mean, like, it's funny because her father and then me are both Iowa fans. So, like, she doesn't really like college sports or anything like that. But, like, for example, on a side note, like, our star basketball player at Iowa, Caitlin Clark. Yep. Man, I mean, a girl from the Midwest. Yep. Local girl here. Yep. I mean, and out there doing it, that's impressive. Yeah. I mean, if she hasn't earned her respect in that sense. Yeah. I mean, I guess if she hasn't earned your love, she sure as heck earned your respect.
She's special.
She's special. For sure. And that's what I said. Like, I try to teach her that there's nothing you can't do. For sure. I don't want her to ever feel like she's falling short just because she can't. Yeah. If you're gonna fail, fail at 100 miles an hour. Yeah. You know what I mean? For sure. And then learn from it. Yeah. And then do something different or make a different take about it. But definitely, like that's like you said, it's very humbling to see our parents and our families try come up from nothing. Seriously. Yeah. And here we are. For sure. Yeah. All right. So this is probably going to wrap it up. Andy, I really appreciate you being on the podcast here today. I appreciate you having me, man. Love you, man. I love you too.